The morning broke pale and fragile, a thin gray light filtering through the curtains as Daniel Thompson zipped the last of his suitcases. The air inside the bedroom felt heavy, not from heat, but from the months of words left unsaid. Laura was still asleep, or pretending to be. Her back faced him, shoulders rising and falling in that slow rhythm that had once comforted him. Now it only reminded him how far apart they had drifted. He paused beside the bed, his hand brushing the cold metal of the doorknob. The silence pressed against him. He wanted her to say something, anything, to stop him, to fight for him. But there was nothing. Only the low hum of the ceiling fan, and outside, the faint rustle of leaves brushing against the window pane. Daniel checked his watch. 6:12 a.m. Emily was waiting. The name alone stirred a strange blend of excitement and shame in his chest. She was everything Laura wasn't anymore. Young, spontaneous, unbroken. With Emily, he felt seen again. With Laura, he only felt judged. He set his wedding ring on the nightstand beside her phone. It made a soft, hollow sound as it touched the wood. For a moment, his reflection stared back at him from the mirror. A man in his 40s, tired eyes, a small suitcase, and a guilt that clung to him like second skin. Laura shifted slightly under the blanket. Her voice came, faint and half asleep. "Leaving early?" Daniel froze. "Yeah, long drive." "Don't forget your jacket," she murmured, still facing away. Then silence again. He waited. Maybe she'd turn. Maybe she'd ask him to stay. But she didn't. So he walked out. Downstairs, the smell of last night's wine still lingered. 2 glasses sat on the counter, one half full. He remembered their argument, the bitterness in her tone, the way she'd laughed coldly when he mentioned Emily. "You think she loves you?" she had said. "Wait until she sees who you read. Ally are." He tried to shake it off. He had to. Outside, the early morning air felt sharp, cleansing. The sun had barely risen, the streets quiet except for the distant bark of a dog. He loaded his bags into the trunk, shut it softly, and climbed into the car. For a long moment, he just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, watching the house through the windshield. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Curtains still drawn. No movement inside. He thought about going back in, saying a proper goodbye, but something deep in his gut told him not to. He turned the key. The engine came to life with a low growl. As he drove down Maplewood Lane, the rearview mirror caught a fleeting image. The house shrinking behind him, bathed in that ghostly morning glow. He felt a pang of unease. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe something else. It was as though the walls of that house were watching him leave, memorizing his departure. He told himself it was over, that he was doing the right thing. But as he reached the edge of town, his phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Can't wait to see you. We're free now." He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. The road stretched ahead like a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. Behind him, the sky over his home grew darker, clouds gathering where the sun should have been. Daniel didn't look back again, but if he had, he might have noticed the faint flicker of the porch light, a motion sensor triggered inside an empty house, a house where silence had already begun to rot. 3 days had passed since Daniel drove away under that pale morning sky. Maplewood Lane had returned to its usual quiet, sprinklers hissing, dogs barking in fenced yards, mailboxes yawning open in the sun. But by the 3rd evening, the quiet turned wrong. Martha Reynolds, who lived next door, first noticed the smell. It drifted through her kitchen window, faint, sour, and unmistakably out of place. At first she thought it was a dead animal under the porch, but by the next morning the stench had thickened, curling into her lungs even from her front yard. She called the police just before noon, her voice trembling. When Officer Carter and Detective Marla Jones arrived, the house looked peaceful. Curtains drawn, porch light still on, Daniel's car gone. Carter knocked twice. No answer. He tried the handle. It turned easily. The moment the door opened, the air changed, thick, damp, heavy with decay. The officers exchanged a look before stepping inside. The living room was undisturbed. A wine glass on the coffee table, a throw blanket on the couch. Everything looked too normal, as though time had stopped mid-evening. Carter called out, "Mrs. Thompson? Police!" No response. They moved deeper into the house. The smell grew stronger toward the stairs. Flies buzzed faintly from above. When Marla reached the bedroom door, she hesitated, hand hovering just long enough for her stomach to twist. Inside, Laura Thompson lay on the floor beside the bed. Her skin was pale, mottled blue-gray. Her hair spread like a dark halo. One arm was tucked awkwardly under her body, the other extended toward the nightstand, as if she'd been reaching for something. Carter exhaled sharply and turned away. "Jesus Christ!" Marla crouched beside the body. "Rigger's broken," she murmured, eyes scanning the room. "This didn't happen last night." A bottle of sleeping pills lay open on the dresser. Next to it, Daniel's wedding ring, the same ring he had placed there 3 days ago. They called for the coroner. While waiting, Marla wandered through the house, notebook in hand. Every room told the same story. 2 lives frozen in quiet tension. In the kitchen, 2 wine glasses still sat on the counter, one half full, one untouched. She ran her gloved finger along the rim, eyes narrowing. On the refrigerator, a photo was pinned with a magnet. Daniel and Laura smiling in some summer memory, faces pressed close. But someone, maybe her, maybe him, had scratched out Laura's face with a ballpoint pen. Downstairs, the coroner confirmed what Marla already suspected. Time of death, at least 72 hours ago, maybe a bit more. Marla looked at her watch. 3 days? Give or take. She scribbled notes, her pulse tightening. But Daniel Thompson was seen leaving this house yesterday morning. Packed car, drove off. Neighbor saw him. The coroner frowned. Then either someone's lying, or he left her like this. Outside, the small crowd of neighbors had gathered behind the yellow tape. Martha stood at the edge of her driveway, hand over her mouth. "I saw him," she kept repeating. "I swear I saw him." As the body was carried out, Marla's eyes followed it. Something didn't fit. The timeline, the silence, the untouched details. People don't just die quietly and stay undiscovered for days unless someone wants it that way. Before leaving, she took one last look around. The house had returned to its unnatural stillness. The hum of the refrigerator, the creak of settling wood. But beneath it all, something faint, almost inaudible. A buzzing near the nightstand. She traced it to Laura's phone. Dead battery. She bagged it as evidence. As she stepped out into the sunlight, Marla felt the weight of the air lift just slightly, but not the unease. That stayed, like the smell that would cling to her clothes long after she left. She didn't know yet what she'd find on that phone. But somewhere on the road beyond Maplewood Lane, Daniel Thompson was driving deeper into a story that no longer made sense. The neon sign outside the Maple Crest Motel flickered weakly in the rain. Daniel parked the car under the awning, the wipers squealing against the glass before stopping in silence. Emily sat beside him, her knees drawn close, eyes fixed on the dashboard light that made her skin glow faintly gold. She looked exhausted, but radiant. That fragile kind of beauty born from chaos. Inside, the motel smelled of bleach and cigarette smoke. The walls were painted an unforgiving beige, the kind that made everything look temporary. Daniel handed the clerk his credit card, signing the name Mr. Wilson without thinking. A lie had never come so easily. Emily noticed, but didn't say anything. She just smiled faintly, brushing her damp hair back as if pretending this was all romantic, not desperate. Room 12 was small, dimly lit by a single lamp on the nightstand. Rain tapped against the window like impatient fingers. Emily dropped her bag on the bed, her laughter thin and nervous. "Not exactly the paradise you promised," she said. Daniel smiled, tired. "It's just for a few days, until things settle down." She nodded, though her eyes betrayed unease. She wanted to believe him, that they'd run away and start over. But something in his tone, the way he avoided her gaze, whispered otherwise. They ate takeout in silence. The sound of the TV filled the gaps between them. A news anchor's voice talking about a body found in a quiet neighborhood. Daniel muted it instantly. Emily frowned. "Why'd you turn it off?" "Just noise," he said too quickly. "Let's not watch that tonight." She didn't argue. Instead, she leaned against him, tracing the faint line of his jaw with her fingertip. For a moment it felt normal, like the beginning of something tender. But then she whispered almost to herself, "She'll hate me forever, won't she?" Daniel's breath caught. "Don't talk about her." Emily fell quiet, her fingers tightening slightly on his arm. She could feel the tension under his skin, a pulse that didn't slow. Later, after he fell asleep, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. The rain had stopped, but a different sound took its place. A faint, rhythmic dripping from somewhere near the bathroom. She got up, barefoot on the cold linoleum floor, and followed it. The tap was dry, the sink empty. Then she heard it. A whisper. Soft, drawn out, almost like a sigh. "Daniel." Emily froze. The air felt thick, pressing against her chest. She glanced at the door. Still locked. Daniel mumbled in his sleep, his face turned toward the wall. She shook him gently. "Daniel, wake up." He stirred, annoyed. "What? What is it?" "There's someone," she whispered. "I heard someone said your name." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You're imagining things. You need rest." She wanted to argue, but stopped. Maybe he was right. Maybe the stress, the secrecy, the guilt were making her hear things. Still, when she lay back down, she made sure to keep the light on. By morning, Daniel was already up, pacing, checking his phone. Emily watched him from the bed. He hadn't smiled once. The unease in the room had thickened overnight, settling into the air like dust. "Daniel," she said softly, "are you sure we're safe here?" He didn't answer, just stared out the window at the endless gray road stretching ahead. And in his eyes, for a flicker of a moment, there was something that looked like fear. Outside, the motel sign flickered again, light buzzing like a dying heart. Emily's reflection in the window seemed to blur, and for a split second, she thought she saw another woman's face behind hers. The fluorescent lights above the morgue hummed softly, a sterile, endless buzz that filled the silence between breaths. Detective Marla Jones stood at the edge of the steel table, hands in the pockets of her coat, eyes fixed on the pale form laid before her. Laura Thompson, age 38, wife, homemaker, recently deceased. The body had been cleaned, labeled, and prepared for examination. The sweet metallic scent of antiseptic couldn't fully mask the underlying odor of decay. Dr. Richard Klein, the county pathologist, adjusted his mask and glanced toward Marla. "You ready?" She nodded. "Let's find out what really happened to her." Klein began with the routine: measurements, photographs, careful notation of bruises and abrasions. Each click of the camera echoed in the chilled room. Marla flipped open her notebook, her pen poised, her expression unreadable. Blunt force trauma, Klein said after a moment, pointing to the back of the skull. Severe, likely caused by something heavy. Maybe a metal object, corner of furniture, or a fall. He paused. But there's no sign of struggle. Marla frowned. So she didn't fight back? Doesn't look like it. No defensive wounds, no broken nails, no bruising on her arms. That detail tightened something in Marla's chest. Victims who didn't fight either never saw it coming, or couldn't. Klein made another incision, his voice steady, professional. Internal bleeding matches the impact site. Death would have been quick. Minutes, maybe seconds. Marla's eyes moved to Laura's face. Peaceful now, but there was something haunting about the faint crease in her brow, as though even in death she'd been trying to remember something. What about the toxicology? She asked. Klein gestured toward a small tray of vials. Preliminary report came in this morning. Diazepam. Enough to sedate an adult, not kill. If she ingested it willingly, why, she'd be drowsy, disoriented. Marla's pen paused. If she didn't? Then she was drugged before the impact, which means she never saw it coming. The detective exhaled slowly. That fits the timeline. Klein looked at her. You think the husband did it? She didn't answer right away. I think Daniel Thompson left the house looking calm, too calm for someone whose wife was already gone. But there's something else. She tapped her notebook. The neighbor swears she saw him leave that morning, 3 days after the estimated time of death. Klein raised an eyebrow. Impossible. Exactly. He sealed the samples, labeling them with practiced precision. Marla's phone buzzed on the counter. A message from forensics. Laura Thompson's phone restored. 2 voice memos recovered. She pocketed it silently. Evidence always told stories, but sometimes they lied too. Klein stripped off his gloves. Whatever happened, it wasn't an accident. Somebody made sure she couldn't scream. Marla looked once more at Laura's still face. No one deserves to die in silence. Outside, the world felt painfully bright after the morgue's cold gloom. She lit a cigarette, something she rarely allowed herself anymore. The first drag burned. Somewhere, Daniel Thompson was living freely, maybe even sleeping beside the woman he thought would save him. Marla stared at the gray plume rising into the sky. You can run, she murmured under her breath. But the dead always catch up. The interrogation room was quiet except for the faint ticking of the wall clock. Daniel sat at the metal table, his hands clasped, knuckles pale. Across from him, Detective Marla Jones flipped through a stack of photos. The house, the blood patterns, the coroner's report. Each image slid across the table like a blade. I didn't kill her, Daniel said finally, voice low. When I left, Laura was alive. Marla's expression didn't change. You expect me to believe that? The coroner places her time of death 3 days before your neighbor saw you drive away. He swallowed hard. Then your coroner's wrong. Marla leaned forward. Tell me what happened that morning. From the beginning. Daniel's gaze drifted to the wall, not to avoid her, but because the memory had already begun to unspool. Laura had been awake when he came downstairs that morning. She was standing in the kitchen, barefoot, staring into the half-empty wine glass from the night before. The air smelled of cold coffee and something sharp beneath it. Resentment, exhaustion, maybe both. You're really doing it, she said without turning. I told you I was, Daniel replied. His voice sounded hollow even to himself. She laughed quietly, a brittle sound. Running off with her. You think that's going to fix you? He didn't answer. He had learned that silence hurt her more than words ever could. Laura turned, eyes rimmed with red, her expression caught between fury and heartbreak. "You think I don't know her name? Emily. I've seen the texts. I know everything." He looked at her, tired. "Then you know why I have to go." Something in her broke. She crossed the room quickly, voice trembling. "You can't just walk away. After everything I gave you. After everything we were." "Laura, please." "No!" she snapped, tears streaking her face. "You'll regret this, Daniel. If you ever leave me, you'll regret it." He remped to ember the way she said it. Not loud, not threatening, but almost prophetic. Like a curse. Marla's voice snapped him back to the present. "She threatened you?" He hesitated. "Not like that. She was upset. She'd been drinking. She'd been different lately." "How different?" Daniel leaned back, rubbing his temples. "Paranoid. She'd call me at work, say she heard voices in the house. Once she said someone was watching her from the backyard. I thought she was imagining things. Marla wrote something in her notebook. So you left her alone despite that?" He flinched. "I didn't mean for what, Daniel?" He shut his eyes. Behind them, images flashed. Laura crying in the doorway, the ring on the nightstand, her whisper echoing as he walked away. "Don't forget your jacket." He had taken that as dismissal, but now it sounded like something else. A plea. "She was alive," he repeated softly. "When I left, she was alive." Marla studied him for a moment. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion, the kind that comes from sleepless nights and buried guilt. "Your lover, Emily," she said finally. "Did she know Laura was still alive when you left?" Daniel's silence was answer enough. Marla closed the file. "We're pulling your phone records, and hers. If there's anything you're not telling me, now's the time." He looked at her, then at the small black recorder on the table. For a moment it seemed to hum, like a heartbeat echoing in a hollow room. "Detective," he said quietly, "some things you don't come back from." Marla didn't respond. She gathered the files and stood, leaving him alone with his thoughts. That night, in his motel room, Daniel couldn't sleep. Emily was in the shower, humming softly, the sound almost soothing. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Laura, standing in the kitchen, her eyes dark and unreadable. Her words replayed in his mind, looping endlessly. "You'll regret it." He opened his eyes, breath shallow. The room felt too small, the air too thin. On the nightstand, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. One message. "You forgot something." He froze. The text had no name, no attachment. Just those 3 words. The bathroom door opened, and Emily stepped out, wrapped in a towel. "Who's that?" she asked. Daniel stared at the screen. "No one," he lied, but his voice trembled. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, low and heavy. Somewhere miles away, Detective Marla Jones sat in her car outside the precinct, playing Laura Thompson's recovered voicemail for the first time. The voice on the recording, shaky, frightened, whispered Daniel's name. The storm that rolled in overnight had left the motel soaked in silence. Rainwater trickled down the windows, and the hum of the old air conditioner filled the room like a faint mechanical sigh. Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of her own breathing too loud in the stillness. Daniel was beside her, asleep, or pretending to be. It started with the dripping, a slow, uneven sound near the bathroom door. She frowned, sitting up. The faucet was off. She'd checked it before bed. Yet the floor glistened faintly under the pale glow of the lamp. When she leaned closer, her heart froze. Wet footprints, bare, small, led from the bathroom to the foot of the bed. She reached out, trembling, to touch one. It was real, damp, cold.
"Daniel,"
she whispered, shaking his shoulder.
"Wake up."
He groaned. What is it now?
"Someone's been here."
He sat up slowly, eyes still heavy with sleep. When he saw the footprints, his expression shifted. First confusion, then something darker. You probably spilled water, he muttered. I didn't. Her voice cracked. They're not mine. He sighed, got up and wiped his face. Em, we've been on edge. You're tired. You need to rest. But when he turned toward the window, he froze. A shadow flickered across the curtain, too defined to be a trick of light. For a heartbeat, it looked like a woman standing just outside, her hair tangled, her face pressed against the glass. Then it was gone. Daniel yanked the curtain open. Nothing. Just rain and the hum of the highway in the distance. Emily's voice trembled. You saw it too, didn't you? He hesitated. No, it was probably a car passing by. But the lie tasted bitter. That morning he found Emily curled up by the bed, clutching her knees. Her eyes were wide and unfocused. She was here, she whispered. Last night I heard her. She said your name, she said... Her voice faltered. He belongs to me. Daniel knelt beside her. Emily, listen to me. No one's here. You're scaring yourself. She touched me, Daniel. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Her hand was cold. I could feel it. He wanted to tell her it was stress, guilt, exhaustion. But deep down he wasn't sure. He hadn't slept properly in days. Sometimes in that fragile moment between waking and dreaming, he swore he heard Laura too, a whisper just behind his ear. You shouldn't have left. He tried to push it away. He told himself ghosts didn't exist, only memories that refused to die. That evening, the motel manager knocked, asking if everything was all right. Daniel forced a smile. Just fine, he lied. But the manager's eyes lingered on him longer than comfort allowed. Strange thing, the man said, scratching his neck. You're in room 12, right? Had a couple last year, husband and wife. Wife died in her sleep, right where your bed is now. Daniel's throat tightened. That's just a story. The manager shrugged. Maybe. He left, footsteps echoing down the hallway. Inside, Emily had gone pale. It's her, she whispered. Laura. Daniel slammed his hand against the dresser. Stop saying her name! The sound startled even him. The mirror above the dresser trembled, its reflection warping under the weak light. For a brief, flickering second, Daniel thought he saw her standing behind him, Laura, eyes open and hollow, lips curved in something between sadness and accusation. He spun around. Nothing. Only Emily, trembling in the corner. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, breathing hard, staring at his hands. They wouldn't stop shaking. Maybe, he said finally, his voice barely audible. We should leave this place. Emily nodded, but her gaze was fixed on the bathroom doorway, where the tiles were still damp and glistening. Another footprint appeared, slowly, deliberately, without a sound. Daniel didn't notice. He was staring at his reflection in the mirror, but the face looking back wasn't his anymore. It was hers. The digital forensics lab was a cold, humming place. Screens flickering, machines breathing softly like sleeping animals. Detective Marla Jones stood over the evidence tray where Laura Thompson's phone sat sealed in a transparent bag. The once ordinary device now felt like a ghost itself, holding fragments of a woman's final hours. She nodded to the technician. Let's see what she left behind. It took minutes for the system to decrypt the phone. Photos, texts, and missed calls flooded the monitor. Marla scrolled carefully. Bank transactions, grocery lists, half-written notes. But something stood out. A series of voice recordings, unsent, never backed up. There were 5 in total, all dated within the last week of Laura's life. "Play the first one," Marla said. The technician hit the key and Laura's voice, fragile, tense, filled the small room. "It's getting worse. He doesn't talk to me anymore. I can feel him slipping away. I think he's with her again." Marla's pen froze above her notepad. The emotion in Laura's tone wasn't anger, it was fear. "If he leaves, I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll show him how it feels. Maybe he'll finally look at me." The recording ended abruptly, replaced by static. The next one was quieter, almost whispered, as though Laura didn't want to be overheard. "Someone's been outside the house. At first I thought it was Daniel, but last night I saw a shaiter down near the window. It wasn't him. I called out, but no one answered." Marla's brow furrowed. "So she thought she was being followed?" The technician nodded. "Looks like it. She made these over several days. No one else had access to her phone. Play the next." This one was harder to listen to. Laura sounded panicked, her breathing uneven. "He doesn't believe me. Daniel says I'm imagining things. But I know what I saw. There's someone watching this house. Every night the same feeling, someone standing in the dark, waiting." Marla felt a chill creep down her spine. It didn't sound like delusion, it sounded like certainty. The 4th recording crackled with interference, but Laura's voice was unmistakable. "I followed the car today, the one that keeps parking near the corner. It drove off fast when I got close. Maybe I should tell the police. Or maybe I'll handle it myself." The room went silent when it ended. Marla looked up. "That's the day before her estimated time of death, isn't it?" "Yes," the tech confirmed. "Timestamp matches." Marla leaned back, her mind racing. Laura wasn't just a victim of domestic turmoil. Something else had been circling her life. Something unaccounted for. "Last one," she said quietly. The final recording was short, barely 20 seconds. But its tone was different, calm, almost resigned. "If anything happens to me, it's not just Daniel. Someone else knows. Someone's been inside." The audio cut with a faint metallic click, like a door closing. Marla exhaled slowly. She knew she was in danger. The technician hesitated. "There's something else. A deleted folder. Encrypted messages sent to an unknown number. They're trying to recover it now." Marla glanced at the evidence board beside her, the photos of Laura, Daniel, and Emily already pinned with red string. Every line between them blurred into confusion. Infidelity, guilt, fear. And now, surveillance. "Maybe she wasn't just paranoid," Marla murmured. "Maybe she really was being watched." A phone buzzed behind her. Another detective calling from the field. Marla answered. "Detective, we pulled the motel's guest list," the voice said. "You'll want to see this." Marla's pulse quickened. "Why?" "Because a woman checked in under Laura Thompson's maiden name, 2 days after she was declared dead." Marla froze, eyes darting to the phone still lying on the table. Its dark screen seemed to stare back at her, as if it still had more to say. Detective Marla Jones sat alone in the precinct's evidence room, surrounded by the hum of old computers and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. On her screen glowed a map of the city, red dots tracing Daniel Thompson's every move in the week before Laura's death. She'd been staring at it for hours, her coffee gone cold, her nerves drawn tight. Daniel's official statement claimed he left home early Monday morning, but the data didn't lie. His car's GPS showed a pattern that didn't match his story. Between Tuesday and Wednesday, the 48 hours after Laura's confirmed time of death, His phone pinged 3 times near his own neighborhood. 3 times he'd come back. Marla leaned forward, zooming in on the coordinates. Each location was within a mile of the Thompsons' residence. One signal placed him at a gas station on Hollow Creek Road. Another, disturbingly, near the wooded path behind his backyard. "Why would you come back if she was still alive when you left?" she whispered to herself. Her computer beeped. An email from the tech lab. Subject: credit card records, match, GPS logs. She opened it instantly. Gas purchase, ATM withdrawal, a motel transaction. Not the same motel where Daniel and Emily had stayed earlier. A different one. Closer to home, small, nameless, and cash only after the first night. Marla's pulse quickened. "You didn't just drive away, Daniel. You circled back." She printed the logs, pinning them to the investigation board beside Laura's photos, the titi. Imeline had cracks now, deep ones. The estimated time of death placed Laura's final moments sometime Sunday night. Daniel had told police he left Monday morning, but between those days, there was a void, a missing window that no one could account for. The phone on her desk rang, breaking her thoughts. It was Detective Reynolds from the field team. "Jones, you'll want to hear this." His voice came through, gravelly with fatigue. "We canvassed the neighborhood again. A witness down the street swears she saw headlights in the Thompsons' driveway around 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Said she thought it was Daniel's car." Marla stood, her pen tapping against her notepad. "Did she see anyone else?" "Not clearly. Just a tall figure getting out of the driver's side, moving something heavy toward the back of the house." Then the lights went off. She glanced again at the board, at Laura's pale, lifeless face, staring back from the morgue photo. "Thank you, Reynolds. Send me her statement." When the line clicked dead, Marla sat still for a moment, the evidence whispering 100 different stories in her mind. Either Daniel was lying, or someone had access to everything he did. Her gaze fell to a printed photo of Emily, the young lover, the new beginning. Her alibi was vague, unverified for most of that same time period. What if Daniel wasn't the one who went back? She opened the motel registry from Emily's check-in. The handwriting was sharp, hurried, the address field blank. And the name, Laura's maiden name. "Who the hell were you pretending to be, Emily?" she muttered. The pieces were beginning to form a new shape, something darker, less predictable. Daniel's guilt had been too easy. The sedatives, the false time stamps, the shadow Laura spoke of in her recordings, they were threads of the same unseen hand. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification from forensics. Covered message fragment found in Laura's deleted texts. Marla opened the file. The message was short, half corrupted but readable. "If you come back tonight, I'll show you where she hid it. No sender, no recipient. Timestamp 1:42 a.m. Tuesday. The same night the neighbor saw headlights. Marla's heart pounded. Whatever it was, money, evidence, something else. It meant Laura had been planning something right before she died, something that involved someone else. She turned toward the board again, the threads between the names twisting tighter. Daniel, Laura, Emily, and now a missing fourth. She grabbed her coat and keys. "No more guessing," she whispered. "Let's see what you were hiding, Daniel." Outside, the rain had begun again, a steady rhythm against the pavement, like the ticking of a clock running out. The interrogation room was small and airless, the kind of place where truth seemed to rot before it surfaced. Emily sat across from Detective Marla Jones, her mascara streaked, her hands trembling around a half-empty cup of water. The young woman looked nothing like the confident lover Daniel once described. She looked hollowed out, raw, as if the truth had already begun to eat her alive. Marla sat opposite, quiet but unyielding. "Let's start again," she said softly.
You said you knew Laura before the night she died.
Emily nodded, tears welling up.
Not really knew her. I needed to see her, woman to woman, to tell her it wasn't supposed to happen this way. When was this? 3 days before she died.
Emily's voice cracked.
I went to the house. Daniel didn't know. I thought maybe if she saw me, if I told her we loved each other, she'd stop clinging to him.
Marla's gaze didn't waver.
And did she?
Emily let out a dry, bitter laugh.
She didn't even seem surprised. She said she'd been expecting me.
Marla leaned forward slightly.
What do you mean? She said Daniel wasn't worth either of us, that he lies to everyone. She said...
Emily swallowed hard, her fingers digging into her palms.
She said he'd done it before, that there was someone before me, another woman who just disappeared.
The words hung heavy between them. Marla's mind spun.
Another woman? Another disappearance? Then what happened next? She pressed.
Emily's breathing quickened.
I was leaving. I swear, I was trying to. But she followed me out to the driveway screaming. She said I ruined her life. She threw something. I think it was a photo frame. It hit my shoulder. I pushed her back.
Her voice dropped to a whisper.
She fell.
Marla's pen froze mid-note.
You're saying she hit her head?
Emily nodded slowly, tears spilling now.
There was blood. I panicked. I tried to wake her, but she wasn't moving. I didn't know what to do. I ran.
Marla's tone hardened, though her eyes stayed calm.
You left her there, bleeding? I thought she'd be fine. I told myself I'd go back, but then Daniel called that night, said he was finally leaving her, and I thought maybe she was okay. Maybe she just wanted to scare me.
Marla's silence was deafening. She'd heard hundreds of confessions, but this one carried the sour weight of fear and guilt tangled together.
When did you realize she was dead?
Marla asked quietly.
The day it was on the news.
Emily's hands shook violently now.
When they said her body was found, I thought Daniel had found her, that maybe he was covering for me.
Marla leaned back, studying her.
So, you think Daniel helped move the body? I don't know!
Emily's voice broke.
He started acting strange after that, paranoid, distant, like he knew something. He'd wake up at night saying he heard her voice. He said she was still in the house.
The confession hung in the stale air, echoing through the room like a ghost. Marla let out a long breath.
Emily, there's something you need to understand. The autopsy showed sedatives in Laura's system. Someone drugged her before she died. That means she was unconscious, defenseless, when the blow happened.
Emily's face drained of color.
No, I didn't drug her. I swear.
Marla watched her crumble, her body folding in on itself.
Then who did?
She asked softly. Emily lifted her head slowly, eyes wide with something beyond fear.
Daniel. He gave her pills. He said they'd help her sleep.
The room went still. Marla closed her notebook with a quiet snap.
Emily,
she said, voice steady.
You just gave us what we needed.
Emily's tears fell silently now, her gaze unfocused.
He said he loved me, she whispered. But maybe he loved her more. Even dead.
Marla stood, signaling to the guard. The door opened with a metallic groan. As she stepped out into the hallway, Marla's pulse quickened. The threads were tightening fast. Love, guilt, deceit, and now a confession that twisted the entire case. Daniel Thompson wasn't just hiding something. He was waiting for something to be found. The evidence lab was silent, except for the low hum of the playback machine. Detective Marla Jones stood rigid, her eyes fixed on the screen where a waveform pulsed faintly, the recovered voicemail Laura Thompson had recorded minutes before her death. "Ready?" the technician asked quietly. Marla nodded. "Play it." The speakers crackled. For a moment, there was only static, the faint rhythm of breathing, and then Laura's trembling voice. "Daniel, I know you're coming back. You said you wouldn't, but I saw your car. Please just talk to me. We can fix this." Marla's chest tightened. The timestamp on the file read Sunday, 11:47 p.m. The night before Daniel claimed he left home. The recording continued, the sound of footsteps creaking across hardwood. Laura's voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt her, Daniel. She came here, There was a sudden noise, the sharp scrape of a door opening, followed by a second voice. Male. Calm. Too calm. "Laura, stop talking." Marla froze. The technician looked up, eyes wide. "That's Daniel," she said quietly. "You shouldn't be here," Laura said, her tone panicked now. "I thought you left with her." "I came back for you," Daniel's voice replied. "We can make this right. Just stop crying." There was movement, the sound of glass shattering, a thud, a muffled cry. Then another voice entered the mix, higher, trembling. Emily. "Daniel, what are you doing?" she gasped. "Oh my God, she's bleeding." Marla's pulse spiked. "She was there," she whispered. "They were both there." The technician replayed the section, isolating the background sounds. A struggle, a chair tipping, Laura gasping for breath. Then Daniel again, his tone low, desperate. "It's fine. She's fine. Just help me. Help me move her." A long pause followed, only breathing. Then, faintly, a sound neither of them expected. A wet, dragging noise, as if something heavy was being pulled across the floor. Laura's phone must have fallen, the microphone pressed to the tile. The next few seconds were distorted, but one final word broke through, a whisper, almost inhuman. "Don't leave." Then silence. The recording ended. Marla's throat felt tight, her hands trembling slightly despite her years of experience. The silence that followed was heavier than anything she'd heard in her career. The technician exhaled shakily. She recorded her own death. Marla took a step back, forcing herself to breathe. No. She recorded her murder. She walked to the evidence board, staring at the interwoven threads, the timeline, the confessions, the data. It all came together now. Daniel hadn't just come back for closure. He'd come back to control what was left. "Emily said she pushed Laura," Marla murmured, her thoughts racing. "But this shows Daniel was already there. He didn't stop it. He directed it." The pieces clicked one by one, the sedatives, the missing 48 hours, the false alibi. Daniel had planned it, waited until the sedatives weakened Laura, then let Emily's confrontation do the rest. The tragedy wasn't spontaneous. It was orchestrated. Marla turned to the technician. "Get this transcribed, cleaned, and logged as primary evidence. I want every word time-stamped." As she walked out of the lab, her phone buzzed. A message from the patrol unit monitoring Daniel's motel. Subject, target on the move. Message, Daniel Thompson just left his room. He's heading east. Alone. Marla's eyes narrowed. "He's running." She grabbed her coat, her pace quickening toward the exit. Not this time. The wind outside was sharp, carrying the first hints of dawn. Somewhere beyond the gray skyline, Daniel Thompson was driving into the horizon, not knowing his own voice had just sentenced him. The interrogation room was silent, except for the low hum of the ceiling vent and the faint buzz of the camera's red light. Daniel Thompson sat in the metal chair, wrists cuffed, his once neat hair disheveled, his eyes distant and hollow. Across from him, Detective Marla Jones laid a small recorder on the table. "This is your chance, Daniel," she said calmly. "We have your GPS logs, the sedative bottles, and the voicemail Laura recorded before she died. You were there." Daniel didn't flinch. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost gentle. "I told you before, Detective. I didn't kill her." Marla pressed play on the recorder. The familiar sound filled the room, Laura's pleading voice, Emily's panic, and Daniel's calm, commanding tone. The thud, the gasp, the silence. She stopped the tape midway. "That's you, Daniel. Right there. Laura's last breath on record. You can keep pretending, but the truth's already talking." For a long moment he didn't move. His fingers flexed slightly, the cuffs clinking. Then he let out a faint sigh. "You know what's funny?" he said quietly. "I used to think the worst part of guilt was not being able to sleep, but it's the opposite. It's sleeping too well." Marla frowned. "What are you saying?" Daniel looked up, his eyes glassy, almost amused. "I didn't plan it, not at first. I just wanted out. Laura, she was obsessed, controlling. She'd record every word I said, follow me to work, check my messages. She told me if I ever left, she'd destroy me." He leaned back, voice steady now, detached. "So, when Emily went to talk to her, I thought maybe it would end. Maybe they'd scream. Maybe Laura would finally see what she'd become." Marla's pen stilled over her notebook. "But it didn't end, did it?" His gaze drifted to the recorder, then past it, as if he was watching it happen again. "When I got there, she was on the floor, breathing, barely. Emily was crying. There was blood, so much blood. Why didn't you call an ambulance?" Marla's tone was sharp, cutting through his calm like glass. Daniel's lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Because I realized she wasn't going to stop. Even dying, she was still winning, still pulling me back. She whispered something, said I'd never be free. And in that moment," he exhaled, "I knew she was right." Marla's stomach tightened. "So you let her die?" "I watched," Daniel said simply. "She was still breathing when I knelt beside her, but I didn't touch her. I didn't help. I just waited." It was quiet for the first time in years. He looked up, his voice chillingly calm. "She wanted me gone. Now we're both free." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marla stared at him, her pulse steady but her thoughts storming. "You think that's freedom?" she asked softly. "You drugged her, watched her die, then ran off with the woman who helped kill her. That's not freedom, Daniel. That's rot." He chuckled under his breath. "You wouldn't understand. You don't know what it's like to live in a cage made of love." Marla stood, switching off the recorder. "No," she said evenly, "but I know what it's like to lock one." She nodded to the officer waiting by the door. "Take him to holding. Charge him with murder and obstruction." Daniel didn't resist. As the cuffs tightened, he glanced back once, his smile faint and eerie. "Detective?" Marla paused. "She's still in the house," he whispered. "You'll see." The officer led him out, the heavy door slamming shut behind them. Marla exhaled slowly, staring at the still recorder on the table. The silence in the room seemed heavier now, pressing in from all sides. She reached out and replayed the last few seconds of Laura's voicemail one final time, that faint, broken whisper before the end. "Don't leave." Her hand trembled slightly as she stopped the tape. For the first time in years, Detective Marla Jones felt something she couldn't name. Not fear, not pity, but a quiet, aching sorrow for a woman who died waiting for love that had already gone cold. Outside the interrogation room, thunder rolled in the distance. Months had passed since Daniel's confession. The trial had come and gone. Headlines screaming betrayal, murder, madness. The motel was demolished, Emily transferred to a psychiatric facility, and Daniel sentenced to life without parole. Yet for Detective Marla Jones, one thing remained unfinished: the house. She returned on a gray afternoon, clouds hanging low over the dead lawn. The Thompson residence sat in silence, its shutters half broken, the mailbox still bearing both their names, Daniel Laura. The wind stirred the overgrown grass, whispering through the cracks of the porch. It was as if the house itself had been waiting for her. Marla stepped inside. The smell of dust and something older, rot, perhaps, filled the air. The furniture was covered in white sheets, ghost-like in the dim light. Her footsteps echoed softly across the wooden floor, and she could still see faint stains near the baseboards where the technicians had scraped away dried blood months ago. In the living room, Laura's portrait still hung above the mantel. The smile on her painted face looked different now. Not warm, not proud, but tired. Marla stood before it, hands in her pockets, studying the woman who had once loved too fiercely and died too young. A voice recorder clicked on in her hand. Her tone was steady, detached, the voice of a detective summarizing a closed case, yet beneath it ran a current of grief. Case number 2917A, she began softly. Laura Thompson, female, 36. Cause of death: blunt force trauma and blood loss. Time of death: estimated between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. Location: her own home. She paused, glancing toward the hallway, the same one Laura had crawled down before collapsing. Suspects: Daniel Thompson, husband, and Emily Ward, his mistress. Motive: jealousy, resentment, emotional instability. Both now in custody. Marla clicked the recorder off for a moment, exhaling slowly. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass over Laura's portrait, her own face framed beside the dead woman's. Two sides of the same story, one searching for justice, the other for love. She turned toward the staircase, her footsteps creaking on the wood. Upstairs, the master bedroom remained untouched. The bed was stripped bare. A faint ring on the nightstand showed where Laura's wedding photo had once stood. Marla sat on the edge of the bed and ran her hand across the dust. "She's still here," she murmured, remembering Daniel's last words in the interrogation room. She's still in the house. Something clattered faintly downstairs. Just the wind, she told herself. But still she felt it. That strange pull, as if the walls were breathing, listening. Marla turned the recorder back on. Her tone shifted, softer now, reflective. "Love," she said, "is supposed to hold people together. But in this house, it decayed. It turned to obsession, then fear. And when love dies, it doesn't disappear. It festers. It seeps into walls, into floors, into the bones of the people left behind." She stood, her gaze sweeping across the quiet room one last time. "This house doesn't need ghosts," she continued. "It already remembers everything." The air felt heavier now, colder. As Marla walked back downstairs, she stopped once more beneath the portrait. In the shifting light from the doorway, the frame cast a long shadow across the floor, two figures standing close together. For a fleeting moment, Marla thought she heard something. The faintest whisper, a woman's voice, low and broken. "Don't leave." Her throat tightened. She turned toward the sound, but the hallway was empty. Only the house sighed, old wood settling into silence. Marla shut off the recorder and slipped it into her coat. She took one last look around, at the portrait, the floorboards, the hollow quiet, and then stepped out into the cold, closing the door behind her. Outside, the sun was setting, washing the house in pale orange light. From the street, it almost looked peaceful again, as if pretending nothing had ever happened inside. Marla's final words played in her mind, unspoken yet echoing all the same. Love can rot faster than a body. She started her car and drove away, the engine's rumble fading down the empty street. Behind her, the Thompson house stood still, waiting. And inside, where dust floated through narrow beams of dying light, Laura's portrait watched the door long after it closed. End. The story fades out like the closing narration of a true crime documentary, leaving the audience haunted by what remains unseen, unsaid, and unburied.